People sure seem to be talking about rights nowadays. Rights, human rights, the rights of this group, that group, every other group under the sun. Hi, I'm Jerry Usher with Debbie Georgianni. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And today, Deb, we're going to talk about the debate over rights. And of course, the big one that's in the news right now that is kind of getting all the headlines is what bathroom do you use when you go somewhere? I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday, Debbie. It's like I cannot believe that even just a year ago it would have been laughable to think we'd be having a conversation like this.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And Facebook right now is ablaze about the comments on this topic. It really is interesting how common sense has just flown out the window right now. And it's going to be a fascinating discussion, but you're right. I mean, I can't. It's amazing that this has become a topic for a show.
So what we're going to do today, as always, phone lines are open right now for your takes. 1-800-585-9396. 1-800-585-9396. Now, we have titled the program The Debate Over Rights. We're certainly going to talk about this whole transgendered bathroom thing. I was listening to another radio show this morning, and I think the New York Times or some newspaper came out with 58 different ways that a man or a woman could relate to, refer to himself or herself nowadays,
right,
just that are politically correct. 58 descriptions, self-descriptions.
Aren't they like on Facebook or something for
I
Facebook
think so.
titles?
I think so.
But go ahead.
But Debbie, we want to talk about rights. We need to get foundational here and talk about rights. What a right is and what a right isn't.
Well, you go. I'm glad you explained it in the way you did, Jerry, because I think it's easy for all of us to absorb. So, recap for our listeners what you were sharing with me before we started the show about how biblically rights are from God and what that means for us in our day and age.
Well, from Catholic.org, there is a wonderful article that was actually written in 2011. But I found this online, and it has this description. I think it is absolutely brilliant. Dear friends, listen carefully to this. As you're being pushed around and your thoughts are being swayed, and many of you are cracking under the pressure from different groups to recognize their quote-unquote rights. Listen to this. Human rights are not something that man creates out of whole cloth on mere subjective whim by social contract or through popular vote. Human rights are based upon an objective moral order. Human rights are built upon human dignity, which comes from the fact that man is made in the image and likeness of God and is called to communion with God. Debbie, there are many other sources that I have here that I could read from, but packed within that one paragraph right there, I think is a tremendously important lesson for all of us.
Well, in layman's terms, kind of say that again so that we can, I want to try to really get this in my head so I can really understand it. So if I have to express it to somebody else or in a conversation, I want to be able to say it very effectively. So one more time.
In a nutshell, rights are given by God. They are not assumed or taken by man. They are not created by our whims, our desires. A right has to be something that is divinely given. Comes from God. Okay,
but right now what we're doing on this earth is we are creating these things called rights, thinking that somehow they are sort of connected to how God intended for it, or we're interpreting it that way. So where's the disconnect?
Where's the disconnect?
Where's the disconnect for the humans that are creating these quote unquote rights and thinking that it's something that they think it's from God? Where's the disconnect?
The disconnect is that God isn't there.
Okay.
All right. For only if you are in right relationship with God, which of course the church is. The church objectively is always in right relationship with God. So when the church speaks on a matter of rights and human dignity and so forth, the church is going to get it right because the church is the bride of Christ and has the magisterium and the safeguard of the Holy Spirit. When you get this social group over here, this social group there, this one over here, it's understandable, Debbie, that every group would want to be respected and feel like they're on equal footing. It's very understandable. In the marriage debate, you've got the people who want same-sex marriage. Really, most of them are simply looking to be treated equally, or so they think.
Or have a value.
Be valued and respected, and their dignity. So
absolutely.
This isn't. We're not here to condemn any groups. We're here to simply try to shine a light on what is the truth regarding human rights. And you mentioned Scripture. I wanted to go to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website. They have a section, Rights and Responsibilities, and it says the Catholic tradition teaches that human dignity can be protected and a healthy community can be achieved only if human rights are protected and responsibilities are met. Therefore, every person has a fundamental right to life and a right to those things required for human decency.
Wow.
We're seeing a lot of things that are being touted as rights that are tossing human decency out the window. And there's so much more we could say about this issue, but I'm hogging the microphone.
No, you're
Sorry.
not. I wanted you. I actually kind of, led you into that because I thought what you had to say was so profound in the sense that I'm trying to figure out where it is that we've lost that in translation. Where have we lost it in interpretation? Where have we gone wrong? Because I agree with you. Human dignity. Everybody wants to feel like they have a value. Everybody wants to feel worthy. Everybody wants to feel respected. That's just our human nature. Who wants to be tossed aside? I mean, if you want to be tossed aside, I'd like to meet you because I know I've never met a person that just wants to be tossed aside. You want to have that respect. And so how do we do that in keeping in line with God's command? And so when I asked you where the disconnect is, you said the disconnect is because God's not in the mix, right?
Right.
And so, okay, so what's our responsibility? That's going to be my next question to our listeners when they call in. What is our responsibility as Catholic Christians? What are we to do about that? Are we only to pray? Are we to do something? Are we to not do something? What is our role? And I'm always looking for that because I really feel that this is going to impact all of us on a daily basis. I mean, you can't go into a store now. What happens if you do have to go to a restroom? All of a sudden, you're going to get that angst inside of you going, oh my goodness, what am I going to face when I open that door of the restroom? See, right now, as a female and you as a male, you just walk in when you see the male sign, you walk right in. I see the female sign, we walk in. We don't even think. We're on autopilot. Now we're going to have that apprehension, that anxiety. That is for me. I'm glad my children are raised and out of the house because I have to tell you, for those parents that have small children, that's an added level of anxiety that we don't need to have. I think there's solutions. So this is a great topic, dear listeners. You're already calling in. You're posting on Facebook. You've got a lot to say about this. Please consider joining the conversation at 1-800-585-9396. We want to make this a productive conversation, though, something that we can walk away with and say, okay, now I know how to react, how to respond, how to behave. And that's what we are as Catholic Christians. We're constantly learning and evolving. And so it's important. We need to hear from you. 1-800-585-9396.
All right, please do join us. What is your understanding of rights? Have you studied this issue? What about what I just read, how rights come from God and they are not simply made on a whim or a social desire or a political vote or anything like this? What are your thoughts on that? And of course, we can talk about the one big elephant in the room issue right now, and that is the issue of bathrooms. I mean, if a transgender person is allowed to go into whichever bathroom that person wants, you're making a lot of people uncomfortable. But Debbie, one thing that I have not heard mentioned, and you pointed out to me a story you saw about a boy
in Vermont. It just happened about like 12 hours ago.
Yeah,
or something
dressed as a girl. A boy dressed as a girl went into the boys' restroom. My question is this, and I'd love to hear from you, our listeners, on what you think about this. How long is it going to be before the machismo peers of his see this little girl walk into the restroom and spill his brains against the wall? See, this sometimes, Debbie, I think this is what the certain factions want. They want a martyr figure.
They want a tragedy in order to make their case.
They want to create an instant. Give me a break. Putting this, and even if this was this boy's idea. Somebody's got to pull him aside and say, son, look, we got to talk.
Right.
But I fear I fear for, that he's putting himself in danger.
Right.
And see, nobody's talking about this.
Right. Right. Well, and here's the scoop on this. Apparently, this was just posted like 12 hours ago. We're going to play. You can hear the music. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll share with you this story out of Vermont, out of this school in Vermont, of what happened and how it made the kids feel uncomfortable. And now there's this whole debate going on. So please stay with us. Dial in 1-800-585-9396. We'll be right back.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
So many feminists who want to be equal absolutely degrading themselves. That you want to be a priest, you want to be this, you want to be that, you want to be equal, and yet the media degrades your nature, your beauty as a woman, your goodness. What are you doing to your soul? Huh? What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? You're taking a beautiful body, a beautiful soul, and you're degrading it into the dust. Let us pray. At some point, our dear Lord touches their hearts.
This is Doug Keck, EWTN President and Chief Operating Officer.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City.
This is Patrick Coffin, host of Catholic Answers Live. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
How do you honor Mary during the month of May? Share your photos and stories with us. Email communications@EWTN.com and we'll post as many as possible on our social media sites.
Thanks for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Today we're talking about the debate over rights. And before the nice little break that we just took, I was sharing about this. They posted online just about 12 hours ago. You can look it up. This school in Vermont, and Jerry was talking about this. This young boy who's was dressed as a girl, and I guess he's part of the transgender community. The kids know her as that, and he decided to walk into the boys' bathroom, and other boys were there doing their normal bodily functions, and they were exposed, obviously, and they felt very uncomfortable. So now it started all this controversy and all this problems, and now everybody's taking sides, and all these things are happening, and T-shirts are being printed on both sides, and all this kind of stuff. The interesting thing about it, at the very end of the article, it talks about that this boy who was dressed as a girl had the option to go to gender-neutral bathrooms and chose not to. Now, isn't that very interesting? Here you're giving the option, you're giving the respect.
So they already have gender-neutral bathrooms on the school campus.
That's what it says at the bottom of the article. So my question to this boy who's dressed as a girl is, what made him want to go into that boy's bathroom? Was he looking for a fight? Was he looking to start something? Because obviously it started a problem. And see, that's what I think bothers me about this whole entire topic, Jerry, is that here, when accommodations are made, it's not even being respected that the accommodations are being made. Now it's like, I'm going to go one step further and do what I want to do. And that to me is not appropriate. If accommodations are going to be made, see, I personally feel just to solve this whole debate, I could solve it in 2 seconds. We just need to let the transgender community use the family restrooms. The family restrooms are there for that reason, where boys and girls, because you have a family, could use that restroom. So to me, that would be like a gender-neutral bathroom. Okay, and leave the male and female restrooms separate, and that will make everybody. It's a win-win all the way around. That's how I would, if I was going to solve this situation. But my problem with this story is that now there is a problem. This was a boy in the school dressed like a girl that the kids, I guess, accepted. Now there's a problem. See, so now we've taken it to where they've accepted this and respected this human being. Now there's going to be an issue. So this is not good. When you go from a child being accepted by his peers and now not accepted because of all this controversy. That is when problems going to happen. There's going to be destruction. Things are going to happen. Bullying will happen. This is just not good, and it's a snowball, and it's out of control. And so this is why we're having this conversation today. If you want to jump in, phone lines are lighting up like crazy. Facebook's going crazy, and so get in on this conversation quick. 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like this. Here's kind of the underlying principle. A particular social group lobbies for what it wants, what it says will give them equal dignity and respect and so forth. That usually ends up not being enough. All right, you get what you want, but they don't stop until everybody else is uprooted from their moral moorings, if you will, or forced to join in. That's really a lot of what it sometimes happens. So, as Debbie said, we got full phone lines here. So, God bless you all. Michelle, thanks for waiting. You were on early, and you're first today in San Antonio, listening to EWTN Radio on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. How are we all doing?
Better now that you called, Michelle. Thanks for being with us.
Awesome. Yes, me too. I'm on the same bandwagon. I am completely against having to share restrooms with a man just because he's dressed as a woman. And I understand, okay, they claim they have their rights and people are giving them their rights, but what about our rights, Especially as parents, I have 2 older kids, but I also have a 9-year-old son, that I also kind of worry about. I worry about my daughter. She's 23. But nevertheless, if she goes into the restroom, I'm okay thinking, well, there's other women in there. But now I have this doubt, what if something's happening and what if she's the only girl in there and there is a transgender person in that restroom with her? And it just opens up a lot of doors to things happening. And I understand these people have rights and they want to live the way they want to live. It's not a Christian way to me to live because I'm raised with Christian values and in my Catholic church, and I've instilled those values in my kids. And now it's harder to explain to my 9-year-old why things are happening, because our rights are being infringed on, I feel. Where are my rights as a Christian person? And I agree that I think they should have their own restrooms and stick to them. If they're making accommodations for them to go to certain restrooms, and I think they should all stick to it, beginning with this little boy that started this issue this morning. It's instilled in them, I think, from parents or from just social media everything's going on, and so everything's supposed to be okay. But where are our rights, our values? And I think it's really good for us to stand up for our families. And if they want to live that way, well, that's between them and God. But I don't think that they should force their beliefs or their so-called rights on the rest of us. It's hard. It was hard enough when gay people came out openly to have my son or my children watching women with women and men with men, holding hands, kissing out in the open. That was really hard for me, and even more so trying to explain things to my children, about...
Michelle, let me ask you a question. You said you had a 9-year-old. You have a 9-year-old son?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so now with this whole situation with restrooms, and now when I'm assuming that when we go into grocery stores and retail stores, we're going to be faced with having to walk up to the restroom areas, and it may say male, female, it may say gender neutral, it may say, whatever. I don't know what the titles are going to be or what everything's going to decide state by state, but can you share with us what you plan on sharing with your son? I mean, he's 9 years old and he's going to be walking. Are you going to share with him all the different scenarios? How are you going to handle it as a mom?
Well, I try to explain to him the situation and how things are going, and that some people, for whatever reasons they have, whether they claim that, they were born like this, or I said, but we still have to remember that God is God and He created a man and a woman. Now, these people want to dress the way they dress and behave the way they behave, but that still doesn't make it right. So you just kind of, you go in and do your business. I try to encourage them to go to the restroom anytime before we leave home, especially if we're going to the store. Go to the restroom here, and that way when we're out there, I try to avoid restrooms now. But by the same token, I tell them, well, if it's an emergency, you really absolutely have to go. And then you go in, and I wait right outside the door, and I said, if anything happens, you just scream out. And
Right.
if anybody tries to do anything to you, scream, and I'm going to come into the restroom. But I just tell him, God loves us all. He doesn't like the sin. I said, and that's something we have to remember. God loves the sinner, but he hates the sin. I said, so as far as our faith in God, I said, God created a man and a woman. I said, but people are taking their own life into their own hands. I said, and that's not living Christ-like, not to me anyway. And I said, so we have to live with them, but we're not being part of that. And I said, so, and that's basically all we can do, really, is just explain that to them. Because we can't really fight them. We can fight it, but I don't know, for some reason, it's always like our rights are imposed on, and everybody else is right, and we have to accept everybody. But what about our rights? What about my son's rights? What about my daughter's rights? Where are our rights as straight Christian people?
Therein lies the question, Michelle, and thank you for your call, by the way. You hit something that I talked about maybe right before we came to your call that you might have heard, and that is this conversation, not just on this show, but this broader conversation is not about this isn't about condemning anyone. It's not about attacking people for, even if they hold to what is objectively deemed an immoral position or a disordered desire of some sort. That's not what this is about. This is simply about, it just seems like it's not enough when, and here's the thing, as Christians, out of respecting the dignity of the human person, regardless of any other factors, we often say, okay, well, how can we accommodate you and make this work for you? But then all of a sudden that ends up not being enough. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, now you have to accept this. Now you have to accept this. Now you have to think a certain way. Now you have to behave a certain way. And so it's not enough to do the Christian thing and try to respect a person's and a group's dignity and help them solve what they see as a legitimate problem, I guess. So, Michelle, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate that from San Antonio. Please keep listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And from there, we're going to go to John in Bloomington, Illinois, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. John, you are up next. Welcome.
Yeah, hi.
Howdy. So what is your take, John?
What's that?
Go ahead.
I think they should keep the bathroom thing the way it is right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell us why, John.
You won't get any argument here. Is there more to the story, John?
Personally, I dress up in women's clothing, but I eat at home.
Okay, so you don't go out
public like that.
Okay, so you don't go out in public dressed as a woman. So then this doesn't pertain then, obviously, to you. But if you were to go out in public, what?
I would go use the men's room.
You would use the men's room. So you feel that the labels for woman and men's room that should stay the same?
Yes.
And what about this idea of having a gender neutral bathroom or a family bathroom?
There's family bathrooms in a lot of places that they can use.
John, if this is a question you can just tell me is none of my business and we'll move on. And please understand this is coming just more from trying to understand maybe the subgroup who you're a man. You said you dress in women's clothing. I'm curious if you are at all comfortable sharing what it is that you believe that might motivate that behavior in you. And again, if that's an unfair question publicly like this, feel free to reject it.
It's a comfort thing.
A comfort thing. Okay, so
yeah.
I mean, does it get to maybe confusion over your biological sex, or is that not part of it?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Well, John, I appreciate that. I was not trying to embarrass you or put you on the spot. I think it is an educational moment for our listeners to have had the conversation that we had with you. So thank you so much for calling, John. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to keep you in prayer. And John, will you do the same for us? You're listening to Catholic Radio and Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, so that means you're most likely a man of faith. So please keep us in your prayers. Here's our number, 1-800-585-9396. Don't go away.
It's May 18th, the optional memorial of St. John I, Pope and Martyr. He was a staunch defender against Arianism, the belief that Christ was not divine. The king, an Arian, had him imprisoned in 526 AD, and Pope St. John died soon after. Also, St. Felix of Cantalice died on this day in 1587. Although uneducated, theologians consulted him on matters of spirituality because of his holiness. His simple manner made him a favorite with children, to whom he taught the faith.
Hello, I'm Doug Keck, host of EWTN's Bookmark. I wanted to mention a new book that I wanted you to check out in time for the Jubilee of Mercy. It's A Holy Year in Rome, the complete pilgrim's guide for the Jubilee of Mercy by our one and only Rome correspondent, Joan Lewis of Joan's Rome. And in this book, Joan takes you back in time for a look at the history of Jubilees and then brings you up to the present with a visit to the 7 pilgrim basilicas of Rome, 4 of which must be visited by pilgrims to obtain a Holy Year indulgence. You'll discover the treasures of Rome and the Vatican, and you'll learn all about the many interesting facts, such as the difference between a church, a basilica, the significance of the holy doors, architecture, liturgical customs, and much, much more, as only Joan can bring them to life. Available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. It's A Holy Year in Rome, the complete pilgrim's guide for the Jubilee of Mercy by the one and only Joan Lewis. Check it out.
The EWTN home video highlight for May is Heaven, Classic Talks by Mother Angelica. What does heaven look like, and what might we expect there? Will we be able to see our loved ones? Mother answers these and many more questions about heaven in this classic series. Order your DVD set at EWTNRC.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and you always, as we say, drive this program with your takes. Thanks for your patience. Joan, you've been holding a while there in Boston. We're so glad to have you with us, listening to EWTN on the Station of the Cross in Boston. Hello, Joan. Welcome to Take Two. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
Doing fine.
Love your show. I just wanted to say that I have a son who's disabled. He's 12. And no one's ever brought up that, but we're trying to teach these kids how to go into a bathroom by themselves. And you can forget it now. He can. Oftentimes we go into the family bathrooms, as someone else mentioned, but sometimes you can't. And he's now saying he wants to go to the men's room because he's getting older, but I won't let him. So I'm concerned about that as an issue.
Well, Joan, I rightly so, being concerned. I have to tell you, I totally agree with Michelle, our previous caller, where she tells her son, she's right outside the door and you holler as loud as you can, and I'm the first one in there. And as a mom, I think we would all do that. We would rush in there to protect our children, and it's unfortunate but I guess you have to do that anyway. You have to do that anyway because it's hard when our children leave the clutches of our hands and they're out there in the world, and so we do want to still have that connection and that safeguard to be able to have them give us that signal or that sign that they could be in trouble. So I guess it's just going to take more of us to have these plans in place to protect our children. But Joan, I know that must concern you, and it sounds like it does. And is there anything you want to? I mean, have you thought about how you're going to?
Have severe cognitive impairment. He happens to have Down syndrome and autism. They don't know they're in danger. They're friendly. They approach everyone. They are unaware of danger. Literally, they have safety risk issues anyway. But they don't really know that. So you wouldn't know if they were in trouble. You have to be with them.
Right.
So it's decreasing their independence.
Exactly. See, I didn't realize
they
that.
Have rights too. Nobody. Who says that we always have to bow to the rights of everybody or the rights that people think they have? Like, the world doesn't revolve around each one of us. I know it doesn't revolve around him. So, I mean, what's the world going to be like if every one of us thinks that we think needs to be a law for it? or an accommodation.
Well,
Crazy.
and Joan, earlier in the program, I read something here. Let me just reread this. You may have heard it for those who just tuned in. This is from a Catholic Online article in 2011. Human rights are not something that man creates out of whole cloth on mere subjective whim, by social contract, or through popular vote. Human rights are based upon an objective moral order. Human rights are built upon human dignity, which comes from the fact that man is made in the image and likeness of God and is called to communion with God. And Joan, I would wholeheartedly say your son has far more rights to use a public facility safely, securely, and with privacy than a transgendered person does. Because, well, I mean, don't know that needs explaining.
Well, and the thing I wanted to say, because Joan, when you first started, you said your son has a disability, so I wasn't sure if it was a physical disability, but you're right. Now, when you shared of your son having Down syndrome, his ability to decipher whether he's in danger or not is compromised, and so this puts him at a very great risk. And so my heart goes out to you and all the other families that have the same exact situation, because it really must cause you a lot of angst. And I'm sorry for that. I'm really sorry that this whole debate that's happening over restrooms has to get to this point where it makes it even more difficult to raise families in this world. And that to me is just mind-boggling. It really is.
Anything else, Joan, before we move on to our next caller?
Sorry?
Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, no,
I
just wanted to make one comment that I don't think we're getting to the root of their problem. We just keep accommodating, and there's a root to that problem that they have. I'm not sure what it is. It's probably individual. But as we do that and we keep accommodating people's problems, because I don't believe God would make, and He makes people to be man and woman. He doesn't do this to people. Something else happened. That's my opinion, solely my opinion.
Well,
and
that would be the opinion of the church too. I'm sure. If we look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it most likely addresses these issues. So,
I
Joan,
just want to say I don't know if we're helping them or not. That's all. And our goal is to love everyone and to help everyone. And I don't think that's helping them.
Very good take, Joan.
Yeah,
appreciate hearing from you. God bless. Yeah,
Thanks,
you too.
Joan. Thank
Be
you.
safe there in Boston. We'll pray for you and especially for your son. All right, Andrew, holding next in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, listening to EWTN Radio on the Lam. Hi, Andrew, listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. How are you?
Great. How about you?
Doing fine, thanks.
Well, I just had a couple things I wanted to bring up. Firstly, there was a story out of Chicago yesterday. It's on ABC7 Chicago's website, at least. I haven't heard of it anywhere else. But a man walked into a woman's restroom in a deli there and choked out a little girl. Thankfully, nothing happened to her. She just passed out, and people in the restaurant came to the help. But it shouldn't have had to come to that. I mean, a few months ago, if people were concerned and wanted to help, and clearly these people did, they would have stopped the man from actually going into the restroom. And now we don't have that time. There's just too much time there that these people have to do whatever they're there to do, and it's just unfortunate.
Wow. So this just came out in Chicago area. I hadn't heard from it nationwide. The article that we were citing was from the New York Times Online, and that was out of Vermont, but I had not heard of this. But Andrew, here's the thing. Predators, there's the restrooms are always going to be that, it's just that open source of vulnerability in the restrooms. And so predators will use that as their platform, if you will. And this is just one more level of how it could potentially be heightened by the lack of what does a person do? What do we do now? Are we allowed to leave the door open of a restroom when an 8-year-old little girl goes in? Can we leave the door open? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to leave are we going to start putting
security cameras?
I was going to say, are we going to start putting security cameras in, buzzers in, where people can like kind of those help buttons in the retirement communities when our older folks fall or something and they can push for help? Are we going to start having panic buttons? I mean, this is really unbelievable. And it's really something that I think it goes back to Joan's issue. I mean, what is the root situation here, and how can we do this in a dignified manner and protect all people, and so that's what I don't understand. So Andrew, what is the fallout from this article in your area? Or we said it's Chicago, so it's further away from you, but what do you think the fallout is?
I guess I'm not sure what it is at this point. I lived in Chicago for around 6 years, so I still have a lot of friends there, and so they reposted this, and that's where I was able to read it. It's sparking a lot more conversation and stuff, mostly going back and forth between this stuff probably would happen anyway. I just think the one thing that's not being covered is people want to help and people want to protect these people. Most people are good, and clearly the people in this deli wanted to help this person, and they did, thankfully. But just in the past, I mean, if you see somebody walking into a restroom they don't belong to, somebody says something or somebody alerts a store manager or something, and that gives these people a lot more time. And we're not able to do that anymore. We just have to turn a blind eye and hope that they're just confused, and that's where they're just going in there to do their own business, I guess.
Yeah, well, Andrew, we did a show not too long ago, remember, Debbie, on political correctness.
Yeah.
And really, this was sweeping our country and the world, what was it, back in about the 70s into the 80s. And political correctness, I think, just basically, in many ways, ripped the will out of a lot of people to speak up for what is right and to act in a way that is right, unfortunately. And it has then opened the door for all of these this cascade of things that we're seeing now. So I just think that we've got we've got a cultural situation that is going to require a massive conversion of hearts. I don't say this publicly too often, if I have at all, but I applaud those who try to make changes politically, legislatively, and in all of these public arenas, Debbie. But I am almost to the point where I believe we can abandon those efforts, but I think they're proving ultimately fruitless, because we just keep losing and losing ground. I think anything short of every man and woman of faith, and children too, getting on our knees and asking God for mercy, anything short of that, and we're going to keep hurtling toward getting what we deserve.
Right.
And it frightens me to think of what that might be. So.
Right. That's why it's a year of mercy. It's the year of mercy that Pope Francis called for. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for your take today and your call on Take Two. We appreciate it. We're going to let you go for the rest of your day. Hope you have a blessed day. And we're going to move right along to Mark, listening to EWTN Radio in South Bend, Indiana, on Redeemer Radio. Hi, Mark. Welcome to Take Two.
Hey, Mark.
Hi. Well, more of a comment than a question that, as we enter a discussion about, turning back to God and looking to Him, I think just my experience in dealing with people more from a secular standpoint of view, the first question they would throw at me is, okay, so if there is, such thing as natural law, and you say God has, we have to look to God, for our guidance and in making these rules and rights. Which God? Is it the God of the Catholic Church? Is it the Muslim God? What God am I supposed to look to? Because obviously we know from, the Muslim faith that women don't have the same rights as men do. So, we have to make sure that we're prepared to enter the discussion even deeper than just saying that, okay, we see that man's trying to do something on his own, it's not working, but then, what God? What version of God do you want to present to me? To look to make these rules and rights.
Sure. Mark, I get the question. It's a great one. I would leave the parsing of the various finer points between the religions to, and your basically the core of your question, to those who are experts in Catholic social teaching, who can also answer the big questions about the different sorts of gods, if you will, although we know that there is only one true God. What I would maybe point to is, I mentioned a few minutes ago, the politically correct movement that has really hamstrung people of goodwill for the last several decades. We might want to go back a little bit further than that. In fact, next year is the 500th anniversary of what was called the Protestant Reformation, or more appropriately called the Protestant Revolution. Debbie, there's no question that up until then there was one church with one vision of God's plan and God's will, and a repository for God's teaching, the deposit of faith, the Catholic Church. And then the Protestant revolt basically shattered that. It was like a nuclear bomb went off, and now you've got the shrapnel all over the place in various denominations and constructs of God and this sort of thing. So I think this maybe is the one of the ways to answer that question, is if we get back to the fact that there once was just one, everybody believed the same thing. And I don't know, Mark, is that on the mark at all for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I said I've been devout Catholic all my life and spent 4 years in the seminary, so I'm just kind of making it aware to the other listeners that it's going to have to be more than just a simple, well, this is
because
what,
God said it. Yeah, right.
Because God said it. Because then they're going to say, well, which God? And then as a side comment too, what you were saying, Jerry, about the whole bathroom issue. I came in right into that discussion too. It's like, okay, fine, even if we have this mandate coming from the government that we're not going to give you money if you don't, accept, this cross-gender bathroom use and stuff like that with that threat. Well, what about, the students themselves? What's, like you said, are they looking to make a martyr? When I tell my boys who are 4 years older than their sister, well, you have to defend her dignity and honor as a woman. And, if you see a guy, walking into the bathroom while she's in there, you have to stop it, that you have to give her dignity and, what's our responsibility and response as parents, raising our sons and daughters in this type of culture. So,
yeah, well, I can tell you one thing, Mark, and this goes for folks in Indiana and a lot of other places. Not that all of this stuff isn't creeping into where you live, but you be thankful that you live in an area that is still got a lot of common sense and a lot of people of goodwill and a lot of people who are willing to take a stand on issues like this. So, Mark, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate it. I was just going to add to that we know as Catholic Christians in the world of philosophy, you do not need theology to prove the existence of God. Mm-hmm. Philosophy is a discipline that is not, it's non-sectarian. It's not theology that proves the existence of God. It's philosophy that proves the existence of God. And I bring that up because the same principle can be applied to even the discussion we're having today. You don't need to have a creed to say that this is nonsense, right, that this is lunacy. Reason, God has given us reason as well, reason and common sense. So I just in answer to Mark's question, which God is it? Well, that's an important question to answer. But Debbie, at the end of the day, I'm not even sure we need to introduce God or theology into a discussion that really is just about common sense. Well,
and that's what our Facebook, all the postings that you guys are sending in on like crazy on the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook and television Facebook page. You're saying common sense has gone out the window. Where is common sense? Why aren't our political leaders addressing common sense? Could we just get back to basics? I mean, this is really, to me, this is elementary. I mean, and we're tossing out common sense for all these other rules and mandates in order to accommodate, and it's not working. It's obviously not working because it's already causing problems, and so we know this is not going to be an easy thing to fix. So we're going to move right. Thank you, Mark, so very much for your take today. And
well, you mentioned Facebook, and I wanted to. Our Facebook page is EWTN Catholic Radio. Shannon shared this, and it fits right in with what you're saying, Debbie. Just a comment. God is not a God of confusion. That is Satan's job. And people nowadays are so confused and separated from God that they think being in a state of confusion is the norm.
Wow. See?
You nailed it, Shannon.
Shannon, wait, is Shannon, did you say? Very good, Shannon. Great post. Wow. Okay, thanks again, Mark. We appreciate it. We're going still to Redeemer Radio. Caroline, listening to EWTN Radio in Bristol, Indiana. Hi, Caroline. Thank you for waiting. You got our patience award today.
How are you today?
Good.
Caroline. How are you?
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you can hear me.
Oh, yeah.
My part in this that I've been arguing with people, or basically just giving them my point of view when something comes up on Facebook, is the transgender bathrooms. It isn't common sense, and I do believe it is from the devil, because he does love chaos. And the thing is, when is it going to end? If we don't even put God into it and use just common sense, when is it going to end? I mean, are we going to put cat litter boxes in there for people who think they're cats? Are we going to allow people to go in public parks because they think they're dogs? Or are we going to go back to common sense? Because for me as a woman, I don't care if the guy in the bathroom is gay or transgender. It will make me uncomfortable. And where is my right? And that's basically what I have to say. My brother, who is a cop, has said things like, this also causes more problems with people who are creeping on and taking advantage of women or other little girls in bathrooms, because now they don't have to sneak around. They're able to go in and out whenever they please, and we're not allowed to say anything. You can't say anything just because a man looks like they might be straight. They can go into the bathroom and you can't say anything because you're going to be discriminating against them, because you're obviously saying how a transgender person is supposed to look. So when's it going to end? That's my
Well, Caroline, that's exactly what we were saying. What your brother, the police officer, said. By the way, please thank him. I think you said it was your brother. Thank him for his service in protecting us. Thank him for us if you do that, Caroline. And the other thing too, I wanted to just say is exactly what you just said about predators having they can fly under the radar because we've basically been silenced. And you made the comment early on, Caroline. I just wanted to say when you said, when is this going to end? Unfortunately, this is just me speaking personally, just because I've always had a very strong intuition. I just think, unfortunately, we've got to pray, because I think we're gonna have more tragedies. We're gonna have bullying. We're gonna have fighting and possibly even deaths. And you know what? That's not right. That's not right. You can't tell me that God in heaven is looking down on all of his children and saying, "Good job. That was a real good debate that you guys had. It ended in a murder." I mean, that to me is just craziness. It's absolutely. And so I think first off, I think we need to hunker down in prayer, the rosary, and I think we need to instill common sense in discussions like we're having today every chance we get. We need to set emotions aside, because we all of us, think about it for a minute, we all have friends, relatives, people we know, coworkers who are lesbians or gays or transgenders. We all do now, okay? All of us know somebody. And so we need to put emotions aside and just come from common sense. But I would just say this. I also think we should give more power to families, because they're the ones that are really raising our youth, and those children are the most vulnerable. And I just think we need to give more power to the families, and yet we're taking power away from the families. So something is just not right. Caroline, great take. Thank you so much for calling in. 2 calls from Redeemer Radio, and we're on Redeemer Radio. How exciting. You guys must love the show. Tell us if you like it.
Well, it's great to be on Redeemer Radio and all of the affiliates. And if you live in an area and your local Catholic station does not carry Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, just give them a friendly call and say, it's a show you might want to consider, and we would be grateful for that. We're going to go to Irene next in Houston, Texas, another Guadalupe radio listening to EWTN Radio on that fine network. Hi, Irene. Welcome.
Thank you. I know we're running out of time, but I basically just wanted to share my views on the bathroom. I believe, as the other caller did, the previous callers, this is a big door for evil. I know that we need to respect all our humanity, but I feel the same way. Where are my rights as a Christian mom in protecting my daughters? I have 2 daughters. One of them has been sexually abused. This is just more evil. Our leaders are just opening up doors for more evil to come into our lives. And basically, I've been spending the last couple of weeks just praying not just for myself, but for this world. I know some people say they have Christian beliefs and believe in God. It's easy to say that, but very hard to follow. I'm very afraid. Yeah. I see my daughter afraid. She will not go to the restroom in any public area. She has for a long time.
Your fear, Irene, your fear and your daughter's fear, I think, are very well placed.
Yeah, understandable. But here's the thing: fear is not of God. So we have to take our total faith in God, like you're doing, Irene, and praying. We have to do that. And here's the other thing too. And you said it. You confirmed what I started to say about families, and you confirmed it. So I'm going to put it out there again. We need families to stand united, to stand together, to get their acts together as families, and to start being a family voice out there in the world. If you look at what they've done to families, they have torn apart marriage, torn apart families, and silenced families. So look what happens, Irene. Now you have the fear for your children. And now we all have fears for our children. All these fears are being instilled in us because our voices have been silenced. Families need to speak, and speak out of charity and love, but out of common sense, and to present their case, and hopefully, God willing, with all our prayers around it, maybe these leaders of our country will wake up and realize this is nonsense, what's happening. And so I agree with you 100%, Irene, and prayer is where my first weapon of choice.
Well, I'm not too hopeful of the leadership waking up, Debbie, like you said, but I would say another worthy prayer, worthy of our time and getting on our knees, is Christian unity. We have so many divisions in the body of Christ. If we were all to stand together, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, Fundamentalist, Evangelical, you name it, dear brothers and sisters, please let us pray for that. Jesus prayed for that in John 17, Father, that they may all be one. We are not one right now. And the enemy, Satan, he's having a field day. He's taking full advantage of that. And let us also at the same time give thanks to God for the one true church, the Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, with the teaching authority that has been given to it by Christ. And I just want to remind people that coming up tonight on EWTN radio and television is EWTN Live. Scott Hahn, a favorite, Debbie.
Yes.
And he's going to talk about the theology behind the Apostles' Creed.
Wow, that's going to be a great, great show. So stay tuned in all day long on EWTN. You want to stay with us because we would miss you if you left. Tomorrow's show on Take Two is Life is a Miracle. Every breath we take is a miracle. We're gonna really talk about that. It's going to be very interesting, and I think you'll leave with a real renewed sense of gratitude. So Jerry and I just want to thank all of you. Sorry that we couldn't get to everybody today. Please keep the conversation going on Facebook or Twitter, whatever works for you. But until then, Jerry and I want to wish you
a beautiful and blessed day. Thanks for joining us.